Hello knitters. In this segment, we are going to be looking at gauge. So gauge refers to the number of rows or the number of stitches within a certain measurement. Usually in a pattern, it will give you a gauge over 4 inches. So it'll tell you how many stitches per 4 inches and how many rows per 4 inches you would need to obtain to get a project that's the same size as the one in the pattern. So that really matters when you're making something that either needs to fit or you expect it to be a certain size, and that size really matters. So if you're making a hat or you're making mittens or you're making a sweater, you want to get the same size as the pattern states. So you need to check your gauge, the number of stitches and the number of rows you're getting when you make a sample swatch, and compare that to the pattern to make sure that they are the same. A ball of yarn will normally have a label on it that will also give you a gauge, and it will usually do that within 4 inches or 10 centimeters. So 10 centimeters and 4 inches are the same thing. So it'll tell you the needle size and the gauge, the number of stitches and the number of rows within 4 inches you can expect to get from that yarn. So if you have a yarn where the gauge and the needle size matches your pattern, you have a pretty good chance of being able to make a swatch that's going to be within that gauge parameter. So to make a swatch, you want to make it bigger than the size that they give you in the pattern so that you can measure it. So in this case, my swatch is 5 inches so that I'm sure that I have 4 inches worth of fabric that I can measure to determine my gauge. So to do that, I'm going to look for these V's. Every one of these V's sitting there right next to each other are stitches. And those are the stitches I need to count. So I have my ruler placed underneath a line of these stitches. And I'm going to put the beginning of my ruler right next to the edge of that first stitch. And then I'm going to be counting V's all the way along to determine how many stitches I have for 4 inches. So I'm going to count this as my first stitch. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and so on. So I would keep going all the way to the edge of my ruler for 4 inches, counting each one of these V's along the way. So now that we've determined our stitch gauge, now I'm going to turn my ruler around, and I'm going to do the same thing for rows. And I'm going to find those V's again. I'm going to be counting a column of V's. Each one of the V's going down is a row. So let me position my ruler so that it's at the start, the bottom of this first V. And I'm going to do the same thing that I was doing before. I'm going to count the number of V's that I have within 4 inches. So I would start here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I have 6 rows to 1 inch. I'm going to assume that's 24 rows to 4 inches. But again, on your own work, you should go in and measure all 4 inches if you got a big enough swatch to do that. So now that I know that I have 20 stitches to 4 inches and I've got 24 rows to 4 inches. Now, if that's the same as what my pattern says, then I know that I've matched the gauge, and anything, the project that I make is going to be the size I expect it to be. If I had too many stitches within those 4 inches, I would go up a needle size and try another swatch with a higher needle size. If I don't have enough stitches within those 4 inches, I'm going to go down a needle size and try that and do another swatch with a smaller needle. And I'm going to do that until I get the gauge that the pattern calls for.